Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is hit. Let's take a look at some of the definitions or ways that we use this verb. The first way you might hear hit used is to mean to strike someone or something using one's hand, a tool, some sort of object, etc. There are almost endless possibilities here. So, with this particular definition, maybe we think of little children kind of fighting, right? One does this, right? And the other child maybe says, Mom or Dad, so and so hit me, right? So they struck, would be the idea there. If you think about the action of using a hammer and a nail to connect pieces of wood, right? That idea of hammering, you're hitting the nail, right? So you're striking it using a tool. We also use hit to describe auto accidents. So one car strikes another, we say it hit the other car. A second way you might hear hit used is to mean to suddenly realize something. So, with this particular meaning, it generally gets used like, then it hit me. Could be an idea, an answer, something of that nature, but it's a sudden realization. A third way you might hear hit used is to mean to cause harm or distress to someone or something. So people have used this verb to describe the pandemic hitting jobs, right? Harming people's ability to work in certain industries or fields. A fourth way you might hear hit used is to mean to reach some particular level, a point, or a figure. Sometimes companies will talk about sales hitting $1 million, right? So they've reached this particular level. Unfortunately, or at least I can say I've heard recently this verb used to describe the number of hospitalizations. So, unfortunately, there have been reports. We have hit a new high. We've reached a level where we have more COVID patients hospitalized than at any other point in the last 2 years. I hope that isn't happening at your hospital or in your area, but unfortunately, it is in many parts of the country right now. A fifth way you can use this verb hit is to mean to propel some sort of ball or other object. And you might be doing that with a bat, a racket, a stick. So hit gets used a great deal in sports. So in the sport of baseball and softball, we use this verb quite a lot. You'll also hear it in tennis and in hockey and many others as well. You should know that hit is an irregular verb. To make our progressive tense, we're going to have a little spelling change before we add that ing. So hit is a one syllable word and it goes CVC, consonant, vowel, consonant. So we need to double that ending consonant before we add ing. So the progressive form is going to be spelled HITTING and we pronounce it hitting. The past tense and participle forms don't change with this verb. Okay, so we're not adding ed. This isn't a regular verb. We're going to say hit. So yesterday I hit, I have hit. It just keeps the same form. Now, today we're going to spend a lot of time looking at some more phrasal verbs with hit. You can already tell that there are a number of different ways to use this particular verb, and so we'll put our focus on that today. The first phrasal verb we're going to look at is to hit back. When someone uses this phrasal verb, they might mean that someone is attacking or criticizing someone else. And the attack could be verbally, right? So you're yelling, again, that idea of being very critical about something. But an attack could also be physical in nature. So, an example sentence here Dr. Fauci hit back at senators for their personal attacks. So this sentence might not make a lot of sense to people outside of the United States right now. But this person, Dr. Fauci, has been leading the United States efforts in our fight against COVID-19. And he has testified in front of Congress numerous times about the different work that's being done. And he is often criticized for things that he does. But some people have made very personal attacks on him. There are people who say they want to kill him and hurt him or his family. And recently, he was speaking to senators and he attacked back. He criticized them back, noting that he's just trying to do his job and you're putting my life in danger. I thought this sentence and situation described this particular phrasal verb really well. Another phrasal verb you might hear is to hit it off. And another form of that is hit it off with. Both of these have similar meanings, so it's the idea of having a good relationship with someone from the very first time that you meet that person. So let's look at two examples and I'll explain the difference. So in the first, did you hit it off immediately when you met? So someone might be asking this to a person about their spouse or their significant other, right? Sort of this idea. Was it an instant, "Oh, I like this person and we're going to have a good relationship"? The second example I have, I hit it off with my now husband immediately. So here we're using with, and what's going to come after that is the object, the person with whom we're having that good relationship. And so the true statement there, we liked each other pretty quickly and began dating. Another phrasal verb you might hear is hit on. This can have a couple different meanings. The first might be to suddenly have an idea. An example of this: after a lot of discussion, we finally hit on the solution. We suddenly had an idea as to what the answer was to our particular problem. A second way you might hear hit on used is a bit more informal, and it's this idea of you're starting a conversation with someone you find to be attractive. So, an example here, I've got a question: is he hitting on you? Right? Is he starting a conversation hoping that you might agree to a particular date? Now, you can probably tell from the note on the top right side of my screen, this is just our first part of phrasal verbs. I want to do a quick review of some of the verb tenses that I've used in my examples on this screen before we move on to the next page. So in the first example, Dr. Fauci hit back. This is simple past tense. I know I don't have a time signal here, but I did have a day in mind as I was describing this. The second, we have a yes or no question, also in the simple past tense. Did you hit it off immediately? We've got more simple past tense here. I hit it off with my now husband immediately. That's completed. Again, I would have a specific time in mind. After a lot of discussion, right? So this is also kind of telling us that something has progressed, right? So I would say we hit on a solution is also simple past tense. And then this, is he hitting on you? This is present progressive. So I'm asking about right now in this moment. Perhaps we're in more of a social setting when someone would use that type of present progressive form of this phrasal verb. Let's take a look at a few more phrasal verbs. The first is to hit up. This is also used pretty informally. It means to contact someone. So I've heard people say things like this before. If you want to go out tonight, hit me up, right? So we've got the object between hit up, right? So the person who's speaking this is giving a command. It's using the imperative here. Contact me. So This could be call me, could be text me. It might depend on your relationship and how you tend to communicate with one another. Another phrasal verb you might hear is to hit up for. This is generally meaning that we're asking someone for money. An example here. She always hits her parents up for money when she visits them. Okay, so maybe we envision a young adult, a college student here, and we've got a simple present sentence describing this person's habit. Anytime she goes home to see her parents, she's going to say, "Hey, mom, dad, can you give me a little extra money?" Another phrasal verb you might hear is to hit upon. This is very similar to that first meaning of hit on that we looked at earlier, so suddenly having an idea. An example here, have you hit upon a solution yet? Here's an example of the present perfect, right? So we want to know if this action has been completed. Finally, the last phrasal verb we're going to look at is to hit with. This means that someone is being surprised, either with news, information, but this idea that it's something brand new to them. So, an example here. We were hit with a huge bill last month. Right? So you might imagine maybe it's the gas bill or the electricity bill, and you didn't realize how cold it was or how often you were running the heat in your home. And so you're surprised to get this information that you owe a lot of extra money than, or more money than is normal. Okay? Now let's take a look at some words and a phrase that are related to our verb hit. The first word we're going to look at is the noun form of this word. So, same spelling, same pronunciation. Just like our verb, this noun can have a number of different meanings. I just picked out 6 so as not to overwhelm, but I think I could do a whole 15-minute video on different noun forms of this word hit. So the first way you might hear hit used is to refer to a successful venture. An example of this, the new restaurant is a hit, right? It is a success. People are coming, the restaurant is making money, it's profitable. A second way you might hear the noun hit used is a shorter form of the phrase base hit. And again, this tends to be used in softball and baseball. Here's another example. She's had 50 hits this season. A third way you might hear hit used is slang for murder. Now, this meaning isn't something I hear regularly, but I feel like it is used a great deal in movies and TV shows, particularly if there's kind of an action or crime angle to that particular production. So, in an example here, in the movie, the mob puts a hit out on him. Okay, so here, a hit is describing they want this particular person killed. A fourth way we can use the noun hit is to refer to an instance of some website being accessed by a user. An example of this. That website gets millions of hits. So it means every time someone accesses that website. Another way to use the noun hit is an identification of an item during some sort of research. So, an example here, were there any hits in the database? Right? So, were you able to identify something that you were looking for from your research? The last way you might hear the noun hit used is, again, a bit informal, but it can be a dose of a drug. So many times it's used with illegal drugs in particular. An example sentence here, he took a hit off the joint or of the joint. So again, this would be referring to marijuana and someone again, taking a dose of that. The next word we're going to look at is the noun hitter. This word is used a great deal in the sports of baseball and softball, and so we're referring to somebody who hits the ball. But we could use this with other sports as well. So anytime we're talking about using a bat, a racket, a stick, etc., then you might hear this as well. Here's an example sentence. Paul Goldschmidt of the St. Louis Cardinals was one of the best hitters last season. So I'm a big St. Louis Cardinals fan, so I love giving you an example that from my personally favorite team. I want to note there are so many phrases that use hit. Again, I could do a whole nother video just on those phrases, but I wanted to pick out one that some people hear: hit the jackpot. And if you hear someone say that, they're describing this feeling of being unexpectedly lucky or successful with something. So this sort of connects back to the idea of lotteries, where maybe someone buys a ticket in hopes of picking the right numbers in order to win millions of dollars. But I want you to know this phrase gets used in a number of different ways. And again, it's referring to that idea of being lucky or successful. Here's an example. I hit the jackpot with my in-laws. And this is a true statement for me. I know for many people, the parents and family members of your spouse, sometimes it can be hard. You love your spouse, but you didn't necessarily pick out those extra family members. But I am extremely lucky. I have very kind and supportive in-laws, and so I have used this exact phrase a number of times. I got extremely lucky, or I kind of have this successful relationship with them. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I believe this was another suggestion from a viewer named Robert, and I'm so grateful for that. Feel free to suggest other verbs for future videos. Again, I really appreciate you watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.